Good morning, and thank you for registering and joining us today for the second webinar in our 2024 series, Legal Strategies for Women Leaders. My name is Amanda Dernovshek, and I'm an attorney here at Foster Swift and a member of our firm's Business and Tax Practice Group. Our first webinar in this series was held in March of this year, and in that webinar, attorney Mallory Reeder discussed how a business can and cannot donate funding for political campaigns. If you would like to view that webinar, you can find the recording on our YouTube page. For this second session scheduled for the year, we are going to be talking about AI. So each session provides some time for participants to ask questions, discuss legal opportunities, and problem-solve challenges that women leaders face. This session is being recorded, and we will email you a link following the program, along with answers to any of the questions that we don't get to during the presentation. We want to be respectful of your time, so we will limit this session to 30 minutes. Today's program is informational only, and it is not legal advice. In today's discussion, attorney Lindsey Mead will focus on artificial intelligence and considerations for businesses that might be interested in using AI. Lindsey, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for your time today. Please introduce yourself, and then we can get started.
Thanks so much, Amanda. I'm an associate as well with our firm's Business and Tax Group here in Lansing, and I focus on business law and contracts, a little bit of intellectual property, specifically trademarks and copyright law, and lately, legal matters associated with businesses' use of artificial intelligence.
Great. So I think let's just jump right in. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are really excited to hear about this topic. I know that it has been a really hot topic in the news, and within our law firm, we've talked a lot about AI. So from a legal perspective, what background information regarding AI do you think is most important?
Sure. I think the first step is just understanding it and kind of having a definition of what AI is. And unfortunately, there's no uniform definition of it. So there's multiple different forms that AI can take. And I think that's a huge point of confusion for people. It can be predictive from limited memory, for example. So if we're thinking about our iPhones filling in the next word in a sentence as we type, or our email assuming what sign off we're going to use, that would be an example of something that's predictive versus an AI tool that's reactive, which would involve AI responding to stimuli like automated chess and checkers when we're playing online with bots. But for our purposes, generative AI is really that hot button topic that we're seeing, as you discussed, Amanda. And that's best described as a tool that is machine learning, a model that's trained to create new informational outputs from what end users are typing in and then learning as each end user contributes something new. So this form of AI has been raising a lot of interesting questions, and specifically in the legal space about liability and how that's going to impact the various different aspects of the law.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is generative AI basically takes whatever inputs that people give, and then it pulls answers from what is within that pile of information that was put in by individuals. So it could be, yeah, okay, so that makes sense to me. I think I agree with you that it's a little confusing and scary to understand the different types of AI. So thanks for that explanation. How are we seeing people and businesses use AI right now?
I think from the personal perspective, ChatGPT is really the hot button topic.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing individual people use that, and other generative AI chatbots that are similar, like a Google Bard is something that a lot of people are getting into now as well. But on the other hand, we're also seeing businesses want to restrict that use because of the controversial media coverage that ChatGPT has instigated. So businesses want to limit that because any end user that's contributing information could then result in people relying on information that isn't true for something like ChatGPT, which is open to, essentially the entire internet and any person's input. So that is a really risky space, at least for individual use. And from a business owner's perspective, I mean, employees can definitely still use ChatGPT if not limited, but AI can also be purchased or licensed or developed in-house for particular industries and workforce use. So we're seeing businesses interested in training their generative AI models on their particular material. whether that be for like insurance claims for our insurer clients or fraud detection with some of our union clients and so on. So how AI is going to intersect from a business perspective is really going to depend on the industry.
Okay, got it. I know I mean, even in the legal industry, there's tons of ways that AI is coming up and different resources that we can use. And so you're saying that there's generative AI, and then there's kind of like industry specific generative AI that businesses could find and use that would be a little bit less risky than just a general chat GPT that's out there and open to anyone.
Right. Like in our industry specifically, it can limit our research to only legal considerations, only case law, only statutes. And those models are not going to have the reach that ChatGPT has, which could pull from any end user's input.
Right. Which then makes it safer to
Right.
use. Okay, so what are the pros and cons of businesses implementing AI tools if there's a business thinking about this?
Yeah, I would say potential benefits are important to highlight too, because I think a lot of the coverage has been really risk centered, but there is a lot of pros to this. And that includes allowing businesses to pursue new markets and create new products and services with the assistance of AI tools or creating the AI tool itself. And it can also enhance a company's already existing products. Like we've seen Zoom itself, have its own AI features when it's generating transcripts, or Outlook, coming up with predictive text filling in for email sign-offs like we talked about earlier. And specifically, I think something a lot of people have been discussing is AI can really free up personnel in a workforce to allow high level executives or employees themselves to do more creative and high level tasks instead of having the AI machine handle the more menial jobs. So using people and AI together in a workplace setting can really limit human error when the automated processes are utilized cohesively with humans. But there's obviously risks with that too. And on the flip side, freeing up personnel can be a good thing, but then you also have employees being concerned that AI is going to take jobs in the workforce and replace humans in that space. And people often don't trust AI machines, and business owners are going to fear that reputational pushback that they could receive from an optics or marketing perspective if they choose to implement AI into their business. So I would say the biggest risk there is the unknown with AI, because the legal world is still contemplating if the machine itself can be held liable, if it's coming up with its own generative thoughts, kind of, or
Yeah.
whether it's going to fall back on the company and the creator of that AI algorithm of AI tools from a liability perspective.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think that was something we wanted to chat about was the liability piece of it, because it's not a person that's generating the outcome. It's this like system. So, based on your point about the lack of clarity regarding liability as it relates to AI, what do you think some of the most significant risks are in the legal field that you're seeing impact organizations?
I think tort law and specifically, products liability issues is a huge space where AI is going to grow, develop, and give us precedent in the future when more cases are brought against AI tools and machines. So we're frequently questioning who's going to be at fault when an AI generated product injures someone. And I think we're seeing that evolution of AI machines working alongside humans in workforce with tools like we discussed earlier, or specifically something I think news and media are covering often is self-driving cars, and who's going to be responsible, the machine itself, the driver, the company who created the AI feature for the car specifically. So if AI products themselves can't be liable, it's really unclear who compensates those injured parties in the cases of accidents. And that's a high risk, high variable, the variables at play there are uncertain, and we won't know until, unfortunately, more accidents happen. That's how the law becomes law.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think like as a world, we're all like learning alongside of AI. It's developing, it's changing. We're on the sidelines watching it happen, trying to use it, seeing what the risks might be, modifying our approach to using it. And it's just a really ever-changing space. Um, but I want to transition now and talk about how AI is being discussed as it relates to intellectual property. So I know that you do quite a bit of IP work with copyrights and trademarks. And I'm just wondering, what should organizations be thinking about when they're considering how AI and IP intersect with one another?
I think as it relates to copyright law, people are seeking to protect AI generated works when they're using AI tools to make those works. So we're seeing that already, just on social media, or people in this space where internet is everywhere. They're using AI to create new images or paintings or graphics. And I think people then, when they alter that work, seek to register it and protect it. And there are going to be barriers from the Copyright Office and just legally, because a machine contributed to that, if that can be protected. And I also think another aspect of copyright law is confronting questions about AI chatbots like ChatGPT and their output related to previously copyrighted material. So specifically with copyright registration, we know that the US Copyright Office has issued guidance as an agency that suggests it's possible to protect AI works or works that had AI contributed to them through copyright, so long as the creator or the person who contributed something to that graphic or audio clip or whatever it may be discloses the inclusion of AI generated content in that work, and then has to explain on the flip side his or her unique human authored contribution to that
Mhm,
product
mhm,
or that work. And regarding copyright litigation and the way we're seeing that come up right now, it's really about AI chatbots output. And that is the most popular in terms of OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT's multiple lawsuits that are pending against the creator of that algorithm. Because, for example, a couple authors are bringing suit against ChatGPT and OpenAI because it is using their copyrighted material in answers to other people who may ask, how did Game of Thrones end, for example? Is it, infringing on copyright for that chatbot to have that answer when some end user like you or me may have typed it in and it wasn't inherently invasive, the algorithm itself, to pull into copyrighted material? So that's really the cautionary tale right now to understand from these pending lawsuits. And until we get an outcome, we won't know what the courts say, but it's something to think about when you're considering developing your own AI in-house or licensing to use a different person's AI tool. Is how was that AI algorithm trained? And you want to be sure it's not pulling and infringing on other people's copyrighted or trademark material or patents or whatever it may be.
mhm. Right. Yeah, so that's really interesting. I'm thinking through some of the resources that we have in the legal field, and I've, from presentations we've heard and whatnot, a lot of providers that are selling those tools, and definitely correct me if you've seen something different, but a lot of those providers will explain what information is being used to generate those responses, and it'll limit the scope of what's being pulled from, which can be good for business owners because it helps them to understand what world of information those generative AI responses are coming from. So that can be helpful for purposes of, making sure that you're not infringing on copyrights that are out there or other IP rights that people
Right.
have. Okay, so what would best practices be for clients that are seeking to implement AI into their businesses? And how can they implement that, but also be mindful of the issues that we've talked about today with products liability and negligence lawsuits and those types of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it really comes down to the contracts themselves, whether that be you licensing that AI tool that you've created out to others, or whether it be you considering engaging in a business relationship with a developer of an AI tool, you want to pay close attention to the language in that contract to see if you're willing to work with that developer, because not everybody is being as mindful as they could be about AI tools, because there's piecemeal litigation and really no laws or rules or regulations to that use. So specific areas of contracts that we've just been highlighting are, limitation of liability provisions, the representations and warranties that a developer is making to you, and insurance provisions are just a couple of key sections that we'd really emphasize.
Mhm.
And additionally, asking questions about how that product has been tested, like we discussed before, especially, in the context of something like self-driving cars. You want to know that tool specifically that is embedded into that machine
Mhm.
has been properly tested, that folks have put, intention behind the machine they've created before giving it out to the public. But on the other hand, if you are the developer of the AI technology, being transparent with your customers about the risks, how you tested the machine, improper uses, or what could happen if not utilized correctly, are going to be really crucial considerations to protect the developer in that case from negligence liability.
So I imagine those contracts get pretty long if I had to guess. I haven't reviewed any AI related contracts, but I hear you on some of those issues and they probably get pretty sticky. So I guess if anybody's considering doing this, send Lindsay the contract to review.
Yes, gladly.
So, what would you recommend as key takeaways for folks that are wanting to stay on top of AI and integrate these considerations into their business practices, especially given how quickly this is moving, how the legal landscape is changing, what products are available, and what those products can do? There's so much changing. What are the key takeaways for people who are listening today?
Yeah, I would say staying up to date with that piecemeal state legislation and the industry-based regulation specifically is going to be really important, because there is no overarching federal data privacy statute or AI law. So it is on you, or on your team, whether that be your attorney or folks that you've designated to really stay on top of this, to consistently monitor that landscape, because nothing is cohesive, which is unfortunate and we wish it was too,
Mhm.
but crucial and just a reality of our situation. And if your business is participating in international commerce, understanding that other countries may have progressed more quickly with their AI regulations and guidelines, or have not, instituted anything at all, and understanding how you can be compliant with international commerce, if that's relevant to your business, is important, and something that we're consistently, monitoring, comparing and contrasting state to state level, and also the United States as a whole versus what the UK is doing. So we know that some core themes, though, to the state-based legislation that's already been implemented. California is a leading actor in this space, for example, but the Biden administration has also issued, goal guidelines for state regulators to consider. Really key variables in that space include transparency, fair use, and safety, for example. So before, even though there's not, a law, telling your customers when you're using AI and being mindful that AI algorithms can be susceptible to discrimination because it's based on end users' input and output is going to be crucial, considering if it's trained properly, vulnerable populations like children specifically, if they're going to have access to this AI tool, prioritizing personal data if the tool is gathering information about your inputs and outputs. All of that is going to be really crucial to making sure that you're compliant in using the AI tool, and also if your business is seeking to implement it, that the business is not running into any issues, especially if you're operating in multiple states and not just in one state that doesn't have AI regulation. And attorneys can obviously help with that. We can help with that. We've personally got a team dedicated here, staying on top of this evolving legal landscape and helping our clients with their in-house practices for their employees and for themselves. So whether that be developing a risk assessment strategy, that can be communicated to employees through an AI policy, training them on how to detect AI, manipulated works. We're seeing that a lot with deep fakes, for example, which we could talk about if anybody has any questions, or, just in general, consumer data management guidelines in the workforce. All of those things, if we're staying mindful about the themes of these piecemeal rules and guidelines, is going to keep us at least on top of this until there is an overarching federal rule.
Mhm. Great. Well, thank you, Lindsey, for your expertise and your willingness to discuss this topic with us today. I also want to thank all of you attending this session of Legal Strategies for Women Leaders. I see that there are not any questions in the chat, but I just wanted to mention that both mine and Lindsey's contact information is there if you would like to reach out to us. We really value your feedback, and we look forward to providing you with valuable programming. So if you have ideas about topics that you would like for us to present on, please include that feedback either in the chat or send us an email. We will have 2 more sessions this year. One will be with attorney Gabe Lawrence to discuss some practical guidance about splitting parental time and the responsibilities with your minor children, as well as some basic legal documentation that you will need if your children are entering college. And then our final session this year will be a discussion about mediation, what to expect with mediation, how it can be a helpful tool when you have a legal dispute, and kind of how mediation typically goes. So attorney Kelly Reed Lucas will join us for that discussion. As we wrap up, the screen should be showing a list of the firm's women attorneys, their areas of practice, and their contact information. This will also be included in the link if you have questions on today's topic or have other questions. As women professionals, we truly value the opportunity to network and to do business with other women leaders. So please consider this an open invitation to reach out to Lindsey, myself, or any of our other women attorneys at Foster Swift. And we hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.